It is Tuesday, April the 8th, and the question of the day is hopium gone? Is it all gone? Is it all ruined for forever for Bitcoin, or at least for 2025? And that's the topic that we're going over for today, especially with Bitcoin bouncing quite significantly since we last spoke, even back above $80,000 for a moment there as well, closing yesterday just over $79,000 on the index here. So, it is a genuine question to be asking that, okay, are things safe? Are things good to go now? Is hopium still alive? Well, to be fair, one of the major points of hopium that we've been holding on to on this channel actually did not get nullified yet with yesterday's price action. One of our major points of hopium, of course, was based off of the hash ribbons indicator signal, and that fired off back here, which implies that the last low prior to that firing off, which was 76,700 in March 10th, is not to be closed below. So trading below it, fine. We've seen that before in the past, and it still works out. But in this case, it has not closed below. So it is technically still valid, at least for now. Now, with that in mind, I would really caution against just blindly accepting that this one is going to be reversal right here. Obviously, Bitcoin can still roll over, but for now, there are actually several other points of hopium. So we've spoken about pretty much all of these on prior streams. So I'll just go over it here. Let me go to the next one. The next one was based off of the 5-day HPDR O indicator, and that has gotten down into really crazy critical levels here that we have not seen except for all of the times that we've seen not macro lows, but major lows during this current bull market. We've seen pretty much all of the lows come in somewhere around this region where it traded to on the March dump. And again, these correlate with, very, very close to major price lows, not necessarily in terms of time. You can see several of them calling around the low, but takes, another month or two to really get going on to the upside. But in terms of price, it was effectively the low. And that one, again, fired off actually technically the last week of February, but that low, Bitcoin is still above right now. That was 78,500. So that condition is still valid here too. And I should offer up a counterpoint to that. While we have seen it come down to these really crazy levels that have marked off all of the lows during this current bull market, this is the lowest read that we've seen during this whole market as well. So that can be an indication of a change of behavior. I mean, something has to be the lowest, right? But if I'm going to bring up a counterpoint, I think that would be a very, very valid one. On top of that, we have another point of hopium here as well. This one I've not spoken about on this channel. This is because it's essentially still very new and nascent indicator that I've been working on, but I've been calling it the crown oscillator right here on the 5-day time frame. It is also around the major areas that we've seen for historic lows during this bull market cycle, not in past bull market cycles. Every market cycle kind of has its own read, but you can see that this aligns with essentially the September 2023 lows. And then again, more recently in September of 2024, it is once again hitting this level. This would imply that we absolutely must see it actually cross back up on this next period coming in about 2.5 days. So that would imply that we really want to see Bitcoin rally up, decently from here before, when would that be? Thursday or Friday? But yeah, that has correlated really, really well with this low right here, again, from September of 2023, when Bitcoin was hanging out also on a hash ribbons indicator buy signal as well. If you call, that one actually happened right in this region. And then same thing over here in September of 2024, and same thing with the hash ribbons indicator as well. So we're seeing both of these things play hand in hand. Of course, these are completely different indicators. Hash ribbons is a fundamentally based indicator and has nothing to do with other technical tools that we look at, like that crown oscillator or the HPDRO, which are also both quite different than each other as well. So it is interesting to me to see that these things still hold for now, but they are at the maximum point of potential failure. So what do I mean by that? It's like the maximum point of both potential failure, but also potential profits, I suppose. I mean, you're not gonna have to wait around for too long at these price levels here to figure out if this is going to work out or not. But yeah, let's go over, however, However, still one of the major heuristics that we've been essentially following on this channel for quite some time now that essentially made us bearish back here in late February and has been getting marched down the whole way through. And it's the most simple thing of all time. It's trend, right? And as far as trend goes, it does still make me me a lot more geared towards the downside, or at least expecting downside here. And where is the new PA pivot as far as the last major high goes? Well, according to our indicator, it's right here, just above 85,000 bucks. On the index. That would have to be closed above on a closing basis. Personally, I'd like to see it actually close a little bit higher than that, somewhere above about 87, reclaiming the 200 simple there. But either which one, is probably a good sign. You could imagine that if Bitcoin were to reclaim these regions, the other criteria that we looked at for the HPDRO and of course the crown oscillator, these things would start to turn around in a positive direction as well. So if you just need like a very obvious price area to be aware of, this would be it for me. If Bitcoin can start to close above there, okay, we have a trend reversal in progress, and it doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin's going to fucking zoom and green dildo to 100,000 bucks exactly from that point, but I would start to really entertain the higher probability that Bitcoin is indeed going to be moving sideways and up from that region. But until then, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend, and the trend has not ended just yet. I mean, the trend actually literally just made a new low. So if anything, we have continuation as of right now, and typically trends end if it's a downtrend with another higher low. So we have yet to see that, or at least that's going to take some time anyways. So yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is as long as Bitcoin's below that pivot, I will personally have a bearish bias with a little bit of hopium in the background that these things could still play out, which will be again completely nullified if Bitcoin closes below that 76,700 region on a daily time frame. Now, I've said all of this, and that is essentially the hopium right now, which is still alive, I suppose. However, what we're going to get into next is why I think this is highly risky and still likely to come down. Well, one would be based off the trend, obviously, but the next one is something that we have not mentioned for the past couple of days, and that would be back here. This would be the April statistics. So first and foremost, I want to call out these stats right here, the Bitcoin April open to low. So what I've done is I've gone through each and every past April in Bitcoin's history and measured the difference between the open of the month and then the low of the month, not the close, but literally the low of the month. And I found something very interesting because when we bifurcate this data between positive and negative closing Aprils, well, we find something that's pretty fucking consistent here. For positive closing April, so assuming that April is actually going to reclaim some of the critical regions and actually close green, basically, we have seen still an average difference of about 3.5%. Even when the month closes green again between the open and the low. So to put that into perspective, 3.5% from the monthly open would have been, I think about, that would be, 79 or about 80,000 bucks. However, we have seen already about almost a 10% drawdown, nearly a 10% drawdown. Well, I can show you straight up that we've never seen an April close green and it goes down more between the open versus low than almost 7%. That's the highest number that we've ever seen ever. That was in 2018. It was actually 695. All the other ones you can see are significantly less than that. A lot of these coming in around about 1%. So I do think that that is also concerning because we've already seen Bitcoin overshoot that quite significantly. Yes, there is one outlier where that was not true. That was 2011. So literally like the first time that we ever saw this. I don't know how much you trust that, especially because the returns around that time were just so crazy. But there was a 27.5% delta almost, and the month did close positively. So, but I would argue that the 2011 data point right here is probably not relevant. On the other side, when we've seen April close negatively, we've obviously seen a bigger average difference between the open and the low than if it closes positively, closer to about 18.5 or about 18%, let's say. So putting that into perspective, if this month closes red, we would actually expect the low of the month to come in around the very high $60,000 territory, which actually I do think is still very much possible here, pending confirmation of the break of the March lows. on a daily closing basis, that is. But yeah, there's that. There's also this as well. So when we go over the Bitcoin April lows data, again, for positive closing April months, we find that the low typically comes relatively early within the month, like around the end of the first week of the month on average. And we just passed day number 7 as of yesterday. The average here is about 8.5. So technically, maybe it could go into today as well. But if we really start to see Bitcoin making new lows compared to what we saw yesterday from here on, it's a really good signal that this thing is going to close red for this month, and we're going to see Bitcoin, continue lower, because it's right at that major balancing point. So if it does break lower, it's likely going a decent amount lower. I would say anywhere between like 10 to 15% lower. Anyways, on top of that, I want to pull up something that I have not actually made mention of on YouTube, but I have made mention of on on Twitter. And that is this. Okay, so what I've done here, let me get rid of this. Actually, these are not relevant data points. Boom and boom. And let me get rid of this as well. So what I've done here is I've drawn a time Fibonacci extension from the high to low of the past market cycle. And I found that the forwards projections align really well with major pivots on price action. They're not super perfect, but they're pretty fucking good. So for example, this projection would have told you, hey, we got something new going on right here on this high from April in 2023, and again over here in July of 2023, called the breakout and change of behavior here in December of 2023, one of the major highs of the 2024 consolidation alongside the next major high in the 2024 consolidation. Again, it wasn't like super perfect here. I mean, it would have been nice if it caught like the actual high, but it is what it is. And then of course it did catch pretty much around the current all-time high. And the next projected date of significance is actually all the way here on the 5th of May. Sorry, is that right? The 5th of May? I could have sworn it was like April 26th before. Maybe I'm on the wrong time frame or something, but anyway, somewhere around there, like the end of this month / early next month. It's really going to be a humongous difference anyways. So, should we expect a low somewhere around this date? I would say yes, because I mean, it's probably not going to be high. It's probably not going to be a high. So I would remain a little bit cautious until the end of this month / beginning of May, because things still are more or less risky in my opinion. Again, as long as Bitcoin is below that trend pivot at about $85,500, and before this next projected date of potential change. So that I thought was actually very interesting. And then of course we should talk about if we get over here, where is it? Where did I put it? Yes, stochastic momentum on CME. Several things to be aware of here. All higher term timeframes are aligning once again. We see the daily timeframe showing downside momentum if Bitcoin closes today below 82,100. The 2-day time frame is freshly crossing down, by the way, also playing out a trendline rejection from this regression coming off of the last few major highs. That would be the January highs and even the December highs. And that one remains down as long as Bitcoin's closing below $83,500. The 3-day time frame is also having a fresh cross down, by the way. That one will confirm below 80,350. Right now trading about $1,000 below that, so doesn't really mean too much. But it's not closing tonight; it's closing in actually 2.5 days. Then the 5-day time frame also going to be showing downside as long as Bitcoin's below 83.3. The weekly also going to be showing downside as long as Bitcoin's below 83.3. 10-day time frame coming down hard here as long as Bitcoin's below 105. 2-week time frame also coming down hard as long as Bitcoin's below 105 as well. The monthly we already know is down heavy from 107, and the quarterly is, well, it's not going to be closing anytime soon, but the bi-monthly is pivoted at 90,000 as well. So, that would still be my concerns as far as the higher term timeframes go. I do think that Bitcoin is more likely to kind of roll over here and trade lower. Maybe it tries a little bit of a bounce in the short term. That'd be completely fine. I mean, I think stocks are probably going to have their own bounce as well. So why can't Bitcoin? But yeah, again, nothing changes as far as trend goes as long as you're below this pivot here. Which now that I recognize, actually on CME, it's not $85,000. It's closer to $186,000 and change there. So, I would still remain, personally, I remain cautious as long as Bitcoin is below that number. Yes, there's a few point of hopiums, which have not been destroyed just yet, but I don't know how long that's going to go on for, because this really does, to me, look like it wants to break further down. But just because it looks like that to me doesn't mean that it will. Again, the obviously identifiable area of breakdown continuation, which would imply Bitcoin, at least goes into the upper 60s, I would imagine, is closing below that March low. That's when you start to lose all of the other relevant points of hopium, and then it's some doomium after that, because anytime that we have seen this hash ribbon signal fail over here, which has happened 3 out of 20 times, to be fair, whenever we have seen it fail, Bitcoin has typically come down significantly after that point. But there is one thing that really rubs me the wrong way about this current iteration, is that even when we've seen the hash ribbons indicator fail, like we saw back here in 2020 before the Rona dump, there was still a pretty fucking epic rally. I mean, that's up 53% over the course of 40 days. That's a big deal, I think, at least. In 2021, same thing over here. Bitcoin went up to new all-time highs, nearly 60% or more than 60% over the course of 3 months or so. And then, yes, it did come down significantly after that, but we have not seen any rally from the current signal, like at all. And again, we would expect that these things take, at least like a month or two. But as of right now, it pretty much fired off on the top of that last rally. So it would be the first signal, if it fails, that just completely didn't get anything properly. But that would be a signal in and of itself, like I said, suggesting that we're going to see a pretty nasty drop off after that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the main portion of this analysis. I wanted to come back and check on the quantum wave bands here. I've seen a lot of people super interested in this, which is good. I think it's a really great tool for newer people because, it gives you an idea of what a strategy can look like. I understand that not everyone's a scalper. That's completely fine. You can try it out for free, of course, for 30 days with the code trial in all capitals here. But the 30-minute time frame, it's been chugging along, doing its thing, taking its small scalp wins, and not taking humongous losses on the other side. More importantly, and even if you're an experienced trader, I do think that it offers up a nice edge, because when it fires off these entries, you typically know that you're in an area where you should be expecting at least a little bit of a bounce. Now, I do think that you could optimize those entries a little bit better if you have just even a small amount of know-how in trading. But ultimately, it's there for anyone to try if you're so interested. And we actually will be raising the price at the end of this month. We'll also be, of course, we'll also be accompanying it with, significant upgrades. We're going to be adding new strategies and even its own Discord as well. But that's not coming until May 1st. So yeah, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video. That's enough shilling for one day. Hasn't done anything in the past day. The last trade was actually a loss right here. But more importantly, it's been holding its own throughout this pretty nasty downside move. So happy with that. And I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. We actually recorded this video live here on Twitter. If you want to join in, I think I will actually be doing that from now on, where I go live on Twitter where I record the YouTube videos for anyone who just, wants to come and hang out. It's very easy to do. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyways, as always, I'd like to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Wednesday.